Right, shalom, shalom. First, I'd like to give all praises unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yabashai, Waharakah Kodash, and double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and honors to you brothers out there in the highways and the byways, teaching this word in all sincerity and in truth. And I want to add a couple pence onto this live stream that the Elder Ariala did, Path to the MOTB, all right, which is the mark of the beast, shutdowns, and UBI. All right, so we've spoken about these things before. Everything you see playing out in Esau's government, and it's all by design. All right, they don't want you to know that. They want you to think that everything is just by accident and to get caught up in the theater and who hates who, the reality TV crap. But remember one thing: the Democrats and the Republicans, at the top of it, they're all initiates and they all work towards the same goal. Let's get real scripture real quick. All right. Political theater is exactly that. It's political theater. But when you look at the agenda, it plays out exactly how it's supposed to play out. But they need the left-right paradigm. They need the Hegelian dialectic to push their enterprise forward. All right. Biden and Trump are only adversaries in the eyes of the public. Behind closed doors, right, they are partners, right? And they're all working towards the same goal, which is to have the citizens of the United States of America chipped, all right, to place them within the confines of the New World Order. That's what it's all about. All right, that's when they're talking about making America great again and all that stuff. That's really what they're talking about. All right, this is Psalm 64:5. It says, they encourage themselves in an evil matter. Who's the they? The top of the pyramid. The elites and their initiates that are aware of the overall agenda. That's the they. And these people exist throughout society in all different areas of power and influence, and appear to even be in opposition to one another. Appear. It's an appearance. Like most people would think that someone like Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates is an adversary to, say, Elon Musk, because they're on two different sides, supposedly, of the left-right paradigm. And if you believe that, you're a fool. Because both are working together towards the same end. All right, they encourage themselves in an evil matter, right? And the MOTB, the mark of the beast system, and the mark of the beast is that evil matter, the total subjugation of the earth, right? To put all things under their power and control and ownership, utilizing their technology. That is the goal. All right. They commune of laying snares privily, because this whole thing is a snare. They're creating crises, right? And then they're gonna give the people a solution that was already preordained, which the MOTB. They're gonna bring the people to absolute crisis through chaos, knowing that they've already built the infrastructure, right? Because that's what they've been doing. That's what has happened over the last 50 years. They've been building throughout the world the infrastructure necessary for the MOTB system. And that's why when we do the when we do the algorithms, a lot of times that's what we do. We show the infrastructure. And it looks like all this infrastructure is separate, but it's not separate. In the end, it's all gonna come together as one overarching system. And this is why they have to have this company over here, and it looks like all these different companies is doing something different. Like they would no, if you actually take a step back and look at it from a bird's eye view, you will see that actually this all connects together like Lego, and it's really one system, one interoperable system, right, of control. That's what they're building. Okay, both through the government and through private corporations, public-private ownership, partnership. Because guess what? The elites control both the government and these private corporations. Like that's just how the game goes, right? People like Elon, people like Zuckerberg, people, all these tech guys. These are not random people that are just out there waking up every day doing what they feel like doing. These are agents of the elites that have a specific task and a goal to complete. All right. And if you don't know that, that's because, again, you're a fool and you buy into theater. And it's time to come up out of the way of foolishness, man. That's what the scriptures is here for. Right? So they lay snares privily because the people don't know. The people can't see these things because usually, again, you're caught up in drama. You're caught up in theater. Oh, Trump said this, and this person said that, and that person hates that person, and they get you so caught up on insignificant drama. It's like reality TV that you're not actually paying attention to what is actually happening, to the systems that actually being built around you. It's always misdirections. Just like this shutdown. This shutdown is a pre-planned event. They're all pre-planned event, and it has a goal. But while the shutdown's happening, they're gonna give you a whole bunch of reasons. Oh, is this person's fault? That person. It's all agreed upon beforehand. And what you need to look is what is the actual outcome and how does it play into the overall agenda? Because it's not happening by accident. It's a coordinating event. But to the public, it's not coordinated. It looks like it's just, oh, this person is, because again, and then it becomes a snare because a trap is set. The illusion, the deception leads you into a trap. All right, they say, who shall see them? Right, because these people, they work in the realm of witchcraft. They work in the realm of deception, psyops, misdirection, sleight of hand. Right, and they've mastered the art of group psychosis. They've mastered the art of playing with people's emotions and manipulating them with information and false information. They've mastered that. They've got that down to a T, and you can see it. I see how they, even on Twitter, the algorithm can just manipulate people's minds. And that's why 99.9% of people on the planet do not have a clue about what's actually happening. All right. They search out iniquities, they accomplish a diligent search. Both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep. So they're not caught up with the higher level initiates, aren't caught up in all the drama and all the foolishness that the public is caught up in. Their mindset is completely different. Their mindset is how to manipulate the public to achieve their enterprise. Meanwhile, the public is caught up on, you know, the bullshit little issues that they have them, the gaslighting and the stuff that they do to them every day through the media and the influencers that they control and all these guys. Now they got the NBA thing. That's gonna be a distraction for you now. So you can bug out about the NBA gambling. All right. So anyway, the elder goes into the shutdowns and how this is gonna cause a crisis within the working class, the lower classes, because it's a lot of the lower classes that by design are reliant on a lot of these social programs, because the system of America is not designed for the majority of Americans to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, and that's by design, right? They could absolutely have a system where people don't require social assistance because they're able to work and provide for themselves within the economy. But the economy is not, the economy is, it wasn't designed for that. The economy is simply designed, right, for the elites to amass wealth, right, for the government to have control, to have a large amounts of the people dependent on the government, all right, and for their NWO infrastructure to be to be built. All right, that's what it's there for. Oh, the way the society and is not an accident, and it's not by incompetence, and that's one of the biggest lies. People think these people are stupid. They're not stupid. The education system isn't dumbing people down because someone stupid designed the system. It's designed to be that way. Problem, reaction, solution. All right. The economy is designed to redistribute wealth to the elites while gaining the labor of the people and keeping them dependent on these programs. So now they create a crisis to cut people off these the programs. They know that it's gonna cause anxiety. They already know it's gonna cause conflict because there's a group of the public who are not dependent on these social programs as much, who are also being squeezed by the system, who resent those who are getting these social programs, because they're like, well, why am I paying taxes to support this person on this social program? And that's your middle class. Your middle class resent the idea that you have people on EBT while they're being taxed, and that's all by design. The whole thing is by design, right? So they know that you're going to get a reaction out of these people. You know that you're going to get people that are going to go stealing. You're going to go, people are going to riot. People are going to protest. You're also going to get more people who are going to be pushed into the black market or the black economy, which Esau also owns and controls, by the way. Esau owns and controls the black economy, right? He's the one that is running that, okay? But the black economy is the unofficial economy, which is outside of the white economy. And in among the lower classes, it's 100% part of the economy. You know, people, drug dealers, people of that nature, they make money for themselves and spend money for themselves and their family through this black economy. Now, if the white economy is failing people, more people are going to go over to the black economy, right? So you're seeing the reduction of jobs, you're seeing inflation, you're seeing the cutting of the social program. So naturally, the next step is you're going to have more people entering these illicit trades, right? This is all by design. That's why it says they lay a snare, because this is going to be a snare like the elders going into. It's going to now cause a crisis, which is going to give Esau the excuse to come down with the severe hammer of the law. Let's get a scripture real quick. This is all by design. This is not a mistake. And this is something which has been built up across all these different, whether it's the Democrat or Republican, everything has led to where we are now. It's a coordinated effort, right? This thing wasn't put together in 1 year. And people need to understand that the elites don't deal with 2 day plans. Their plans move forward one administration to another, and they know 3 administrations down what they're gonna do. Okay, you're gonna do just like how Biden and them Trump did the CARES Act. Then Biden came in and he did something else, and then now Trump comes in to finish it off. All right, this is how the game goes. This is Job 5:12. He says he disappointed the devices of the crafty. Now the word crafty there goes into the subtile, which is the same as the description of the serpent in the garden in Genesis. Where is it? Genesis where is it? Crafty, the 3rd chapter. The crafty is the serpent. Now you might just say to yourself, "Oh, the serpent," but that was back in Genesis. Yeah, but the serpent is still here. That serpent represents the heads of Esau, which are the what they call the Illuminati, right? And their initiates. People like Trump. Trump is an initiate. People like Biden, these high level politicians, these high level captains of industry, so on and so forth, that are part of certain families, and agents of the top families. These are the heads of Esau, right? They're the crafty. You see there, Genesis 3 and 1, the serpent was more subtle, the crafty, right? Remember that the serpent is still here. What's that? Revelations. Uh, yeah. Is it 20? The old serpent. Here we go. Revelations 20 and 2. And he lay hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound in him 1,000 years. Now that old dragon, that old serpent, which is devil and Satan, is talking about Esau. And these elites represent the head, because they're the ones that's really the average Edomite you see is a moron beyond belief. They're some of the most low IQ people. The dangerous things, the most dangerous thing about Edomites is they have a hyper inflated sense of their own intelligence. If you actually look at it, the people who are being manipulated the worst is these Edomites, because they're supposed to be in the best position, but they are so easily manipulated, yeah, because they're low IQ, but they think they're high IQ, and that's the worst the worst type of person you can get, yeah, is someone who it doesn't if someone's dumb and they know they're dumb, okay, because that keeps them level headed, right? When you got someone who thinks they're high IQ but they're actually low IQ, that's a dangerous individual, because that individual can be easily manipulated, and they would completely be in a sense of delusion. So you got these MAGA people. They're high on a high level of delusion right now, but they think they're high IQ, but they're really stupid. They're retarded as hell. All right, that's just the truth, right? So the real movers and shakers, the real thinkers, is really these elites. All right, they're the ones coming up with the grand schemes and the grand plans, not these average everyday dummies. They have no idea. They still think America was created to be some kind of utopia for No, man, America was set up to set up the new world order. All right, they had a plan even back then for the new world order. So the America as you know it wasn't the actual goal. You don't know. That was the goal. The goal was always a new world order, and it's on your dollar bill. Goodness gracious, man. These people got no idea. Like I said, the average Edomite, they're not in the loop. And they will never be in the loop because they're too low IQ. Anyway. Yeah, boy, these Edomites, man. They think there's some high level beings, man. They're low, man. Low level apes. Oh, yeah, man, I'm a MAGA, make America great again. Trump is divinely inspired. Like, go Trump. And then my man would just go in and just lie to them to their face. We winning. We is winning. Oh, Donald Trump, we winning. The Nobel Peace Prize. People are retarded. Only a low IQ individual can swallow the amount of propaganda that these men swallow on a daily basis, man. It's insane. Anyway, Job 5. And that's why the Bible says their right hand is the right hand of falsehood. Esau is the ultimate liar, man, and propaganda agent and psyop engineer. Anyway, Job 5 and 12 said he disappointed the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. Right, the enterprise is the goal. Right, the devices represents plans. Right, Esau has plans and devices that he puts out there. Right, and they're subtle. They're not simple plans. Right, and so the simple, they can't think on that level. Why would like for instance the idea of controlled opposition escapes the mind of the average. They can't comprehend how you can have two people on the TV that supposedly hate each other. You could or for instance, they can't comprehend that you can have someone who's speaking against the system who's working for the system. They can't comprehend that idea. And this is how they're always fooled, because the elites can just give them a hero, and the hero would just Judas goat them, because they can't comprehend that oh, this guy that's talking against something is actually working for the people who's for it. COINTELPRO, they can't understand that. That's craftiness. It takes a level of craftiness to understand these things. All right. That's why we gotta be wise as serpents. We gotta be wise enough to understand how these games are played. And we do. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, Enterprise. The Enterprise is the New World Order, right? They want their version of the kingdom of heaven, right? An abiding success, yeah, of the effect of sound wisdom. They want to achieve their new world. That's the goal. Like, can we lock in this thing? Can we get everybody chipped? Can we have the AIs and all this technology and we just run everything? Everything is under our control, complete control and power, pure slavery. That's what they want. All right. But through the spirit of Yahweh Shai, they're gonna fail because of Yahweh Shai. So you might not through. Okay. Well, so the I'm going on a bit long, but so the elder was speaking about that, right? And so I was going into this. You know, you got the situation now where they're classifying um cartels and such as terrorist organizations. Then you see Trump blowing up boats in Venezuela, and people think that's a drug boat. You know, but you don't know what that is. You just see a boat getting blown up, and oh, see the blood. That man CIA just put a boat out there and said blow it up, and it's just all theater. But the purpose of the theater, all right, is gonna come back on the American people, because what they're really doing is they're now the infrastructure that they built for the anti-terrorism, which is a new world order um police state, basically, where they have the power to surveil you and everything you do and disappear your ass. This is all what they built up through terrorism, which again, who created the whole war and terror? They controlled both sides. Esau set up the Al Qaeda, right, to be the boogeyman, to be the terrorist, so that they can justify creating all this infrastructure, this anti-counter-terrorism infrastructure. And the infrastructure was never really designed to go against Abdi in Afghanistan. It was designed to go against Joe Blogg and Shaquan Davis in America. It's designed for the people. It's the base infrastructure for the police state. But they had to sell it like, oh, you know, no, this is not for criminals or for the citizens. This is for terrorists. Look, them guys with beards over there. And man's like, yeah, get them terrorists. Because again, it's that old serpent, which is the devil, man. Them man are slick. They know how to get things in through the door. They know how to get the camel's head into the tent. And once you get the camel's head in the tent, he ain't going back out. You're through. All right. So what you're seeing happening with him putting the military on the streets and all these different things, and the ICE. We told you already, the ICE ain't about illegal immigrants. It's the excuse for a particular infrastructure to be put online, right? It's his excuse to bring the DHS and all that in line with policing and on your streets. It's not about illegal immigrants. It's about the infrastructure. It's about the precedent for what they're gonna. It's all gonna come against American citizens. Man, don't get it, because again, it's easy to get caught up in the drama. Oh, the race. Oh, forget the drama and just understand. So I went. So what you're seeing happening now is the fusion of the war on drugs and the war on terror, and it's going to get worse, because one thing they're going to start doing is they are going to start cutting down the supply of drugs into America. Because guess who always controlled the supply of drugs into America? You guessed it, the government. The government through the Alphabet Boys, right? Because organized crime is controlled by the Alphabet Boys. People just don't understand it, that. And this is where the whole thing is crazy. You got to understand that the people that are at the heads of these organized crime organizations are a lot of times either initiates themselves, or they have handlers who are initiates, right? That already came out in the Iran Contra, and people just think World Cup. They think that was just then. Oh yeah, no, the CIA have always been bringing in all the drugs. The fentanyl's coming from China. Yeah, who do you think organizing all that? So they can control when the streets are flooded with drugs, and they can control when there's a so-called drought. They control that. That's why it's called a controlled substance. Okay. And again, you're gonna be like, well, if they're controlling all the drugs, then how come they're arresting people and putting people in jail? And that's why you're not wise as a serpent. This is why this is the high stakes game ain't for you, man. You should just be a peon. Just be a farm animal on the farm. Because the farm animals don't understand how the farm operates. They're just there to chew the cud and then get reaped. So if you can't understand that, then it is what it is, man. But if you're gonna get into the scriptures and you're gonna learn wisdom, you gotta become wise as a serpent through the spirit. All right, and stop being simple as hell. You gotta separate yourself from these simpletons. All right, now I'm not even gonna go in through all the different ways that the black market is of great use to Esau. Loads of social things they could do with that. Blah 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 blah. You could figure that out for yourself. But the point is that they control the flow of drugs into America, and so what they're showing you is Trump is blowing up a couple of these boats, right? And then they're gonna tell you that what Trump is doing with these boats is cutting down the flow of drugs into America, which when in the actual fact all it is the CIA is just cutting back on the supply. What that's going to do when they cut back the supply, so you imagine this, you got people going into the black economy on both ends. You're gonna have more people who are depressed or whatever, and they go into drugs as a form of escapism. That's why America has a massive drug problem in the first place. It's because of escapism. Okay, so you're gonna have lots of people that gonna go into drugs and alcohol because of escapism. You're gonna have lots of people who are gonna go into selling the drugs because of the money. Now you're gonna get a situation where they start cutting down the supply. So what they're cutting down the supply and demand. Demand is the same, supply goes up, the price goes up. The price goes up. Now you're gonna have gangs who are now gonna be fighting for that supply and the extra money. So you're going to have an increase in violence there. And you're going to have addicts who are now having to find extra money from somewhere to buy these drugs, which means you're going to have an increase of what? Theft, things of this nature, right? So there's an increase in the violence and all the negatives that come with drugs. And all of this is, they already know this is what's going to happen. And that's going to give them an excuse for what? To crack down. But now when they crack down, it's not just going to be the war on drugs, it's the war on drugs and the war on terror combined, which means they have new powers. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Now you're starting to think like a serpent. Now you understand when we tell you that a sword is sharpened, right? Because this is going to be different. This is not going to be like it was before. Yeah, so I already run the AI on it before. So I asked it about reduction in supply causing increase in street price, which would mean addicts will have to commit more crime to be able to afford drugs. Also, gangs would increase violence from control of the limited drugs available. And then, of course, the AI agreed with me because I'm smarter than the AI. It says basic economics, price and demand pressure, street price soar, fewer drugs, higher cost per unit, purity and adulteration shifts. We get that they'll dilute the drugs. Profit margins widen. So why higher prices, the remaining traffickers and gangs have more incentive to fight over smaller markets. The crime effects, property and acquisitive crime. Addicted users who cannot afford the new high prices often commit more burglaries, theft, and fraud to maintain their use. Now, add this into people stealing because of their lack of benefits, and you've got a huge crisis on your hands. Now, there's two solutions to that: the crackheads and introduce a UBI system. Okay, this is the goal, the mark of the beast. The sword and mark of the beast. That's your options. Organized and street level violence. Turf wars intensify as drug volumes shrink. Control of reliable supply lines become more valuable. Retaliatory and preemptive violence. Right. And in a situation like this, the biggest and the most violent gangs are going to eliminate the smaller ones. extortion and protection rackets, blah, 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 blah. And there's historical precedents for it, blah, 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 blah. All right. Now, right. So I said, is the war on drugs and the war on terror becoming intertwined in America? All right. Let me get a scripture real quick, man. You know, and this this is part of being a prince too. Part of being a prince here is you can't be simple. You can't be simple. Part of being a prince, right? And this truth is preparing you to be a prince. You can't be simple. You have to be able to think about things, cause and effect, right? 2 Corinthians 2:11, it says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Most people are not thinking about the fusion of the war on drugs and the war on terror and what that means. They're not thinking about that. They can't see it because these things have been happening in the background, and it's happening separately, so they can't put it together. All right, this devil is gonna come down, and it's gonna seem justified. This is what I'm saying. It's gonna look like it's justified what he's doing, but they already know that they're gonna catch a whole bunch of people that ain't got nothing to do with gangs. They're gonna catch a whole lot of people out in this mess, and they're gonna use it they're gonna say, "Oh, these people were gang members." They ain't no gang members, but they could just say that because they're black, right, or they're Hispanic. Like, no one's gonna question it because it's like whatever. You know what I mean? Like, this is how the game is gonna be played. This is Revelations 12:12. It says, therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. So part of their plans is to whack a whole bunch of people, man, and they are gonna do it. This is why DHS bought all them millions of hollow point bullets, man, because they know what time it's gonna be. All right, let's jump back over here. So, is the war on drugs and the war on terror becoming intertwined in America? Yes, increasingly the war on drugs and the war on terror have become intertwined in America, especially since the early 2000s. That's when it all began. While they began as separate initiatives, right? One focused on the narcotics control and the other on national security. Several political, operational, and economic factors have merged them. This is all by design. Policy convergence after 9/11, which again, you know what 9/11 was, right? This is not a random event. It's an orchestrated event, and it had many purposes. All right. After the 9/11 attacks, U.S. security agencies began framing drug trafficking as a national security threat, not just a criminal issue. The logic was that terrorist groups could fund operations through the drug trade, right? Especially in the which is true. But the terrorist groups are part of the Alphabet Boys. The Alphabet Boys fund their black operations through the drug trade, right? This is how you got guys like Andrew Tate, yeah, that supposedly have all this money, and they give you some bullshit reason how they got all this money to play the character they're playing. That's CIA money. That's all money that you can, like, for instance, I'll give you another example. You see, you get these gal on OnlyFans, right? And they tell you that this gal made 100 million this year, right? Man, a lot of that money is just money that's been funneled through because they want you. The whole purpose of having that one gal or the two gal made the money they made is so they could publicize it and then entice a bunch of other women to enter into that arena. And they're not going to make that money. Why? Because the money those particular women made is fake. It's an orchestrated event. They can use black money operations to funnel money to whatever they want. So that's one of the uses of it. All right. So like the Tates is a prime example. These guys are running around supposedly with all this money, and people actually think they did something to get that money. No, they didn't do nothing. Right? The CIA who own most of the Bitcoin, these agencies own most of the Bitcoin, because who created Bitcoin? All right. So they can pay off. It's well known that a lot of the black operations run through these cryptocurrencies. So they can give Bitcoin and stuff to people, and they can get their money that way. And then it don't trace back to them, because who would be doing the tracing anyway? It would be them. Anyway, the terrorist groups fund operations to the drug trade, like Iran-Contra. Oops. Especially in the regions. And they let you know these things, and people just forget about it. And it's like, yeah, the CIA did that. The Iran-Contra. Gary Webb, and then Gary Webb shot himself twice in the head. Shot himself twice with a shotgun, apparently. All right, which is what happens to you when you actually expose something, and not like these COINTELPRO dudes that claim they're being exposed, but they never get killed or nothing. Anyway, especially in the regions like Afghanistan, Colombia, and West Africa. Thus, counter narcotics operations become part of the counterterrorism strategy, allowing expanded military and surveillance powers domestically and abroad, which is what it's all about. Everything is just gonna be fused into one. There's not gonna be no difference. The military, the police, the everything, and they're gonna use the full scale of the technological infrastructure against the people. Intelligence and military interrogation. Agencies like the DEA, CIA, and Department of Defense started sharing intelligence and conducting joint operations. For example, DEA operations in Afghanistan and Latin America were supported by military drones, satellite tracking, and special forces, blurring the line between law enforcement and warfare. The Pentagon also funded anti-drug efforts under counter-narco-terrorism programs. Right, and while all this is happening, they got the people distracted with some bullshit. Right, foreign policy and proxy wars in countries like Colombia, Mexico, and Afghanistan. U.S. aid was framed as both anti-terror and anti-drug. The FARC in Colombia and the Taliban in Afghanistan were officially labeled narco-terrorists, enabling U.S. intervention under the broader war on terror mandate. This provided legal cover for the drone strikes, military training, and foreign aid tied to counter drug efforts. Domestic policing and surveillance. Within the US, the Department of Homeland Security and fusion centers merged data from drug enforcement and counterterrorism databases. This led to the militarization of the local police, justified by both anti-terror and anti-drug missions. For example, SWAT raids, asset forfeiture, and broad surveillance powers, Patriot Act, have been used in both contexts. And so now you got Palantir and all this stuff. All this is all about bringing all these systems together with the pre-crime and all that crap. So it's just going to be one demonic system with a boot on the neck of the people. And really it's going to be all the people, but you tribes are going to get it the worst because you're the scapegoat. So financial and border security, the war frameworks share tools like KYC, AML, right? And they're going to start making it harder and harder too for these drug dealers to bring their money into the real economy because they're going to shut all that down. They don't need it no more. The new world order is just going to have one economy that's run by the AI. So they don't need the black economy no more. So they're going to start shutting that down. But as they're shutting it down, it's going to create a crisis that they can crack down on. Right. And again, bringing in all this KYC and AML and all this stuff is going to be brought as a solution to even that. They're going to say, well, if we have this system, then these drug dealers and that aren't going to be able to make no money anyway. They ain't going to be able to, that system won't be able to exist if we bring in the UBI and the one technological digital financial system, which everyone has to be a part of. Because how can you? And this is where it's all heading. And financial intelligence tracking to disrupt funding networks. Border security, which is their networks anyway. Border security efforts now treat drug smugglers and potential terrorists as overlapping threats, which drives funding for technologies like biometrics, AI, and predictive policing. Political and economic overlap, blah, 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 blah. So the consequences: civil liberties erosion, expanded surveillance and policing powers, criminalization of poverty, drug-related policing disproportionately affects minority groups, blah, 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 endless correct model. Now, there was another thing that I had. Right, so can the legal definition of terrorism be applied to a street gang? Yes. In certain circumstances, the legal definition of terrorism can be applied to street gangs, but it usually isn't because terrorism and gang activity are treated as legal distinct categories in the US. Right? And that's going to change because check this out. When a gang could be classified as terrorist, it says if gang acts with a political motive or aims, so let's say they start incorporating Antifa in with the gangs and all this shit. There's so many ways that they're doing it right now, right? Or social goals, right? It could meet the terrorism definition. A gang attacks police, which that's going to happen, or government institutions, which you already see that, right? You got gangs threatening the troops, Oh, if Trump sends in the troops, that's terroristic, right? A gang uses violence to intimidate or a population accepting its ideology or leadership. A gang aligns or funds a terrorist group. Now, so if you're working with one of them cartels, or you're getting guns, or you get anything from one of them cartels that they've designated as a terrorist organization, you are now a terrorist organization. You understand what I'm saying? So this is why Ezekiel 21:9. What's happening right now is spooky because the shutdowns and the loss of these social programs can have a ripple effect when you add in them cutting off the drugs and all these different things, which is going to lead to a lot of bloodshed, right? And the people can't see it. Ezekiel 21:9, Son of man, prophesy and say, thus saith the Lord, a sword is sharpened and also furbished. It is sharpened and also furbish. It's sharpened to make a sore slaughter. It is furbished that it may glitter. Should we then make mirth? It contemneth the rod of my son as every tree, and he have given it to be furbished that it may be handled. This sword is sharpened, it is furbished to give it into the hand of the slayer. And these men are going to eventually, they're going to create a crisis where they can just have cover to start killing Jake. And they're going to say, well, he was this, or well, he was that, or he was on social media promoting this, that, the other. We had to clap him in the head. Right? Look, DHS law enforcement arrests gang members, pedophiles, drug trackers as part of Trump's effort to crack down on violent crime and make Memphis safe. This is all just the beginning of it because they know what's coming down the pipeline because they're going to create that crisis. And they're in the process of creating that crisis right now. They're going to cut off the drugs. They're going to cut off the drugs. They're going to cut off the jobs, cut off the social thing to create a crisis to crack down on people. Okay? Right? You remember back in 2013, 1.6 billion rounds of ammo for Homeland Security? Man think it was a joke? All right then. We're going to see.